The jungle was alive with sound. Rain hammered the leaves. Thunder rolled over the dark sky. And somewhere, in that chaos, a SEAL team was losing ground. "We're surrounded!" "I can't see them." Voices cracked through the radio. Gunfire echoed from every side. The enemy was closing in fast, faster than command expected. At the base's command tent, chaos reigned. Monitors flashed red. Communications were breaking. And among the analysts staring at the screens sat Lena Brooks, a quiet intel officer who'd never held a rifle outside of training. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't on the field. Her job was to watch, not fight. But that night everything changed. Lena's hands shook as she traced the coordinates on her tablet. She could hear the SEALs' voices, the panic, the confusion. "We're down to 3 men. Command, do you copy?" The comms officer yelled for a drone strike, but the sky was too thick with storm clouds. No visuals, no air support, they were blind. The SEAL commander, Captain Hale, tried to hold his line, but ammo was running low. They were deep in enemy territory, cut off and trapped. Lena's screen flashed. The signal from the SEAL's tracker was flickering. Their vitals were dropping. Her heart pounded. She whispered to herself, "They won't make it out." Then something inside her snapped, not out of fear but resolve. She jumped from her chair. The officers around her yelled, "Brooks, where are you going?" But she didn't answer. She ran straight to the armory. Her clearance code didn't even allow her access, but in that chaos, no one stopped her. She grabbed a standard-issue rifle, 2 extra magazines, and a radio headset. She wasn't supposed to be out there, but she couldn't just watch them die. The rain hit her face like bullets. The forest was pitch black. Lightning flashed every few seconds, showing her the muddy trail ahead. She wasn't built for combat. But she'd spent years studying enemy maps, movements, and ambush points. She knew the terrain better than most soldiers. Her headset crackled again. "This is Hale. Anyone out there?" "We're pinned down at the ridge." Lena pressed the radio. "Hold position, sir. I'm coming to you." There was silence. Then Hale's angry voice, "Brooks, what the hell are you doing? You're intel, not field ops." But she was already gone, running through the mud, breathing hard, clutching her rifle tight. After 2 brutal hours, she reached the outer edge of the valley. Smoke drifted through the trees. The sound of gunfire echoed like thunder. She dropped to her knees, scanning the ridge through her scope. There they were, the SEALs, hiding behind a broken Humvee. Surrounded on 3 sides, 1 man was down. Another was reloading with trembling hands. Lena crawled closer. Her clothes were soaked, her heart racing. She found a flat rock, steadied her rifle, and took a deep breath. The enemy sniper fired again, his muzzle flash giving away his position. Lena exhaled and squeezed the trigger. 1 clean shot. The echo rolled through the valley. The enemy fire stopped, just for a moment. "What the? Who's covering us?" a SEAL shouted. Hale looked around, confusion and hope mixing in his eyes. He saw movement near the tree line, a figure in a rain-soaked intel uniform aiming through a scope. "That can't be," he muttered, but it was. Lena Brooks, the quiet girl from intel, had just taken out a trained sniper in her first shot. The team's morale shot up instantly. They reloaded, repositioned, and began to fight back. Hours passed like minutes. The storm raged on, and every time the enemy tried to flank, Lena's rifle found them. Her hands bled. Her arms shook. But she didn't stop. When the SEALs were finally airlifted out at dawn, they saw her standing on that ridge, covered in mud, exhausted, but still scanning the horizon. Captain Hale looked up from the helicopter, his voice cracking through the radio. "Intel, huh? Remind me to never underestimate you again." Lena smiled faintly and whispered, "Just doing my job, sir." But deep down she knew this wasn't part of her job. This was something more, something that would change her life forever. The rescue chopper disappeared into the clouds. Rain still poured down like the sky was mourning, and Lena stood alone, soaked, shivering, and staring at the battlefield she had just survived. The valley was silent now. No gunfire, no screams, just smoke rising from the wreckage and the faint hum of distant thunder. She dropped her rifle to the ground, her knees shaking. The weight of what she'd done hit her all at once. She wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to kill, but tonight, she had saved lives and lost a piece of herself doing it. Hours later, When the backup team finally reached her location, they found Lena sitting beside the fallen SEALs she had helped save. Her hands were covered in mud and blood, her eyes empty but alert. A medic kneeled beside her. "Ma'am, we need to get you checked." "You're hurt." She didn't respond. She just stared at the ridge, the place where her first bullet had changed everything. Back at the base, the story spread like wildfire. A quiet intel officer, the one everyone ignored during briefings, had done the impossible. They started calling her the Ghost of the Valley. Some soldiers saluted her when she passed. Others whispered behind her back. Some called her brave. Some called her reckless, but Lena didn't care about names. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes. The sniper's face, the blood, the silence after the shot. Commander Hale visited her quarters one night. He knocked once, then entered. "Brooks," he said quietly, "you disobeyed direct orders." "You left your post." Lena didn't look up. She just said, "I saved your men." Hale sighed. He wasn't angry, or not really. He'd seen enough war to know what she had done took more courage than most soldiers ever found. He placed a small badge on her desk, the SEAL emblem. "They wanted you to have this. Said you earned it." Lena looked at it, the silver wings gleaming in the dim light, and whispered, "I'm not one of you." Hale smiled faintly. "You are now." Days passed. But peace didn't come. Lena requested to return to Intel Command, then back to her desk, her screens, her silence. But fate had other plans. The very valley she'd saved the SEALs from, it wasn't over. Enemy scouts were moving again. Rumors spread that a ruthless commander named Rafik al-Masir had arrived, the same man who ordered the ambush that nearly wiped out the team. And now, he wanted revenge. Command called an emergency meeting. The room was tense. Maps glowed under dim lights. Satellite images showed movement, enemy convoys, supply routes, and snipers being positioned again. Lena sat quietly at the back, listening. The generals argued about strategy. One slammed his fist. Another shouted for airstrikes, but Lena raised her hand. "Sir," she said softly, "if we hit them from the air, they'll scatter. We'll lose the chance to find their commander." The room went silent. "Then what do you suggest?" a colonel asked. Lena looked straight at him. "Send me back alone." The room exploded in disbelief. "You're not combat. You've already risked enough." But she didn't flinch. "You need eyes on the ground. I know that terrain better than anyone now. I can find him and mark the target." Commander Hale looked at her, recognizing the same fire in her eyes he'd seen that night in the rain. He nodded slowly. "If she's going, I'm going with her." 3 nights later, under a moonless sky, Lena and Hale were dropped deep behind enemy lines. No lights, no backup. Just 2 people. 1 rifle, 1 drone uplink, and a mission to end what had begun. The forest was alive again. The same haunting silence, the same smell of rain and danger. Lena crouched behind a rock, scanning through her thermal scope. She could see shadows, enemy guards, weapons, vehicles. "They've built a camp here," she whispered. "He's close," Hale nodded. "Then we take him before dawn." As they crept forward, Lena's hand brushed against the dirt, the same soil she had bled on days ago. It felt cold, familiar, almost alive. Then suddenly, a sound. Footsteps. 2 enemy scouts. Too close. Hale raised his weapon, but Lena tapped his arm. "Let me." She steadied her rifle, the same one she used that night. Her heartbeat slowed. Her breath softened. 2 shots. 2 hits, silent, clean. Hale looked at her, stunned. "You really are the ghost." They reached the enemy camp just before dawn. Lena climbed up a rocky ledge to get a better view. Through her scope, she saw him, Rafik al-Masir, standing near a fire surrounded by guards. She exhaled. Target confirmed. She marked the coordinates and whispered into her comm. "Command, this is Ghost. You have your man. Requesting permission to light the sky." But before Command could reply, gunfire exploded. They'd been spotted. Bullets ripped through the trees. Hale ducked behind a log. Lena rolled into cover, her radio hit and sparking. "We're compromised," Hale yelled. Lena's rifle jammed. Her hands moved fast, clearing the chamber. She looked up. Hale was down, hit in the shoulder. She crawled to him, dragging him behind a rock. "Stay with me, sir." He groaned in pain. "You have to finish it, Brooks." Don't let him escape. She nodded, tears mixing with sweat and rain. Then she stood, alone again. Through the smoke and fire, she saw Rafik running toward a jeep. She steadied her aim. Her vision blurred from the pain, from exhaustion, from fear, but she fired anyway, one shot. Then another. Then silence. When the dust cleared, Rafik lay motionless. The valley was quiet again. Command's voice crackled through the damaged radio. "Ghost, do you copy?" Lena collapsed beside Hale, both breathing heavily. "Mission complete," she whispered. "The valley is ours again." The chopper arrived minutes later. As they lifted off, the rising sun cut through the clouds, painting the valley in gold. Lena looked down from the sky. The same valley that tried to break her. The same place that made her who she was now. Not just an intel girl. Not just a soldier. But a protector, a ghost, who refused to stay silent. The sun rose over the valley, painting the shattered land in shades of gold and smoke. Lena sat in the helicopter, blood drying on her hands, her eyes staring blankly at the horizon. Commander Hale, wounded but alive, sat beside her, silent, pale, but smiling faintly. They had done it. Rafik al-Masir was gone. The ambushes would stop. The valley was finally free. But victory didn't feel like victory. It felt heavy, cold, empty. Lena leaned her head against the window. The radio crackled softly, command praising their success. But her mind was far away. She remembered every sound, every scream, every shadow, and one thought echoed inside her. If I hadn't left that desk, how many would have died? She had changed everything, and in doing so, changed herself. Back at the base, soldiers lined up as the chopper landed. Medics rushed to help Hale out. Lena followed quietly, her rifle slung across her shoulder, her uniform torn and muddy. The crowd went silent when they saw her. Some saluted, some whispered. Everyone knew who she was now, the ghost of the valley. The general stepped forward, saluted her personally, and said, "You did something no one else could. The entire region owes you." But Lena didn't answer. She just nodded and walked away. Days passed. The war slowed down, but Lena's mind didn't. Every night, she woke up sweating, hearing gunfire that wasn't there, seeing faces that no longer existed. Her hand still trembled when she touched her rifle. The world saw her as a hero, but she saw herself as something else, a shadow. One evening, Hale visited her in the infirmary. His shoulder was bandaged, but his voice was steady. "You saved my life twice, Brooks," he said. "But I know what that kind of killing does to a person." Lena looked at him quietly. "I didn't do it for glory. I just couldn't let it happen again." Hale nodded. "That's why you're different. Most of us fight because we're told to. You fought because you couldn't stand to see someone die." She smiled faintly. "And yet, I still can't sleep." A few weeks later, command held a ceremony. The hall was full. Officers, soldiers, intelligence staff, everyone. A medal waited on the stage, one reserved for acts beyond duty. When they called her name, Lena froze. She didn't expect it. She didn't even want it, but Hale looked at her and said softly, "Go. You earned this." She walked to the stage. The general pinned the medal on her chest and said, "For bravery beyond orders, for saving lives when hope was gone, for being the voice of courage when silence ruled." The hall erupted in applause, but Lena didn't smile. She looked down at the medal and saw not honor but memory. Every clap sounded like a gunshot. Every cheer felt like a scream. That night she went to the valley one last time. The air was calm. The birds had returned, and the smell of smoke had finally faded. She stood on the same ridge where she fired her first shot. The wind brushed against her face as if the valley itself was whispering, "Thank you, but don't forget." Lena kneeled, placed her hand on the ground and whispered back, "I'll never forget." She took off her badge, the seal emblem Hale had given her, and pressed it into the dirt. "You made me a soldier," she said softly, "but this valley made me human." As she turned to leave, she heard movement behind her, soft, careful footsteps. She spun, rifle ready, but froze. It was a young boy, barefoot, holding a torn piece of cloth, the American flag patch from a fallen soldier's uniform. He looked at her, eyes wide but not afraid. He held out the patch and said something in broken English. He, good man, he helped us. Lena felt tears fill her eyes. She took the patch, placed it gently in her pocket, and said, "Thank you. I'll make sure he's remembered." The boy smiled and ran off into the trees. That was the moment Lena knew. Her war wasn't about killing. It was about protecting what was left. Months later, Lena returned home. The city lights felt strange, too bright, too calm. People passed her on the streets, unaware of who she was, unaware of what she'd done. She didn't mind. She wanted it that way. She joined a quiet veterans program, teaching new recruits about strategy, survival, and compassion. She never spoke about the valley, but every time she saw rain, she remembered. One day she received a letter. No name, no return address, on just a seal emblem drawn on the back. Inside, a single sentence. "You were never just intel. You were the reason we're still alive." And beneath it, a small photo of the SEAL team she had saved. All of them smiling. All of them alive. Lena held the photo to her chest and whispered, "That's enough for me." Years later, stories of the ghost of the valley became legend. Recruits whispered her name during training. Commanders used her mission as an example of courage. How one person's decision could change everything. But Lena never came forward. She never told her side. Because heroes, she believed, don't need to be seen. They just need to act, when no one else will. On a quiet evening, rain began to fall again. Lena sat by her window, watching the drops slide down the glass. She smiled, remembering the jungle, the thunder, the voices, the fear, and the courage. Then she whispered to herself, "Sometimes the quietest ones make the loudest difference." The sound of rain grew softer, and for the first time in a long time, Lena Brooks slept peacefully. The night was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that makes even memories louder. Lena sat on the old porch of a cabin deep in the woods. It wasn't much. A few planks, an oil lamp, a wooden chair, but it was peace. And peace was something she hadn't felt in years. Every creak of the wind through the trees reminded her of the valley. The whisper of leaves sounded like the soft hum of her sniper scope. And when thunder rolled in the distance, she could almost hear the radio again. "Team Bravo, this is Ghost 1. Target neutralized." Her own voice, a whisper that had changed everything. After the war, Lena disappeared from the public eye. No interviews, no medals, no recognition. To most, she was just another soldier who served and vanished. But to those who knew the truth, she was something else. The quiet force that had carried an entire team on her shoulders. One morning, a familiar sound broke the silence. The low rumble of a jeep pulling up outside. Lena stepped off the porch, her rifle instinctively in hand. The door opened and out stepped Commander Hale, older now, gray streaks in his hair. He smiled when he saw her. "Still hiding in the woods, huh?" She smirked.
"Still finding me after all these years, huh?"
They shared a laugh, the first in a long time. Hale handed her a folder thick with documents and sealed photos. "You might want to see this," he said. Lena opened it carefully. Inside were pictures of young female recruits, training in sniper school wearing the same insignia she once did. "We started a new program," Hale explained. "All-female recon and intel snipers. We named it after you," she blinked. "After me?" he nodded. "Operation Quiet Storm, the motto, strength doesn't always shout." Lena looked down at the folder, her name embossed in silver. For the first time, she didn't feel haunted by what she'd done. She felt proud. Later that night, they sat by the fire, drinking coffee that smelled like burnt earth and memories. Hale looked into the flames and said softly, "You ever think about going back?" She shook her head. "No. My war ended when I left that valley." Then she paused and added, "But if someone needs me, I'll know." Days turned into weeks. Hale left, returning to command. Lena stayed, tending to her quiet cabin life, growing vegetables, fixing her porch, and sometimes helping train recruits who visited in secret. She never told them who she was. They only knew her as Miss Brooks, but her lessons stayed with them. Move slow, breathe steady, shoot only when you must, and remember, saving one life is worth more than taking 100. Those words echoed through the training fields for years. One stormy night, she received a call. Static filled the line and then a familiar voice. "Ghost 1, do you copy?" Her heart stopped. It was Hale. We're in the northern sector. Team pinned down. Intel says enemy drones. We need guidance, Lena's voice trembled. You want me to come back? No, Hale said. We just need your eyes. She took a deep breath, pulled her old laptop from a drawer, and booted up the live drone feed. The map loaded, red dots scattered across a mountain ridge. Her instincts returned instantly. She grabbed her notebook, her old pen, and began marking routes, calculating wind, terrain, visibility. Her hands didn't shake anymore. She guided them through every movement, every flank, every heartbeat of that mission. And when the last explosion faded, Hale's voice came through again. We're safe. We're all safe. Still the best eyes I've ever known. Lena leaned back in her chair, smiling through tears. The echo of her past hadn't died. It had become something greater. A lifeline for others. Weeks later, Lena received a letter, handwritten from one of the new recruits in Operation Quiet Storm. It read, Ma'am, I don't know your story, but they say you were the first. You showed us that courage can whisper and still shake the earth. Lena folded the letter and placed it inside her old rifle case. Then she whispered, No, courage doesn't whisper. It echoes. Years passed. War changed. Technology advanced. But the legend of the quiet girl from Intel never faded. New recruits heard her name on their first day. Commanders used her mission as the model of discipline, compassion, and precision, and sometimes, late at night, soldiers swore they heard a faint female voice on their comms, guiding them, calming them, warning them of danger. Ghost 1, eyes on target. No one knew where it came from. But every time it did, someone lived who should have died. The echo never died. Because some legends don't end in fire. They live on in whispers, carried by every soldier who dares to stand alone when everyone else falls. Lena Brooks's story wasn't about war. It was about heart. About how one quiet woman from Intel saved a team, a mission, and an entire valley. Not with power, not with fame, but with courage that never needed to be seen. The camera pans out. The old cabin, the forest, the valley glowing under the setting sun. A single rifle leans against the porch, its barrel reflecting the light one last time. A soft voice narrates the final line. Some fights end in silence. But the brave, their echoes never die.